Hi, I'm Hector Doge, and I reside in the greater Metro Detroit area in Michigan. I apologize for being snuffy in this video. I am recovering from a sinus infection. But I'm making this to tell you that this coming Sunday, November 20th, is Transgender Day of Remembrance. And it's been every November 20th since its inception back in 1998. I personally started participating in this event in 2004. I was 14, a freshman in high school, and just coming out as a transgender male. Me and my friends and the Gay Straight Whatever Alliance Club made posters for our school to raise awareness for the event. But honestly, when I made my posters, I spent a good few hours bawling my eyes out. I had compiled this list of names, dates, and descriptions of anti-transgender hate crimes, and it was just awful. You can still go to the website I use to this day, rememberingourdead.org, to read some of the stories. But there are things like completely preventable deaths happening because medical practitioners or EMTs didn't want to touch transgender patients, that parents mutilated or smothered their babies because they were born with ambiguous genitalia, that there was a 9-year-old boy who was beaten and raped and then left in a ditch to die of internal bleeding because he liked to play with dolls. And it was just so overwhelming for me to go through this massive information that these people were shot, were strangled, were beaten, were raped, were bludgeoned, were all these awful things like being drowned and burned and hanged and dismembered. And it's just not a good thing to realize when you're 14 that the world hates who you are that intensely, that it will resort to that extreme, that magnitude of violence against people like you. And it's scary, but it's true. Transgender people face some of the most brutal hate crimes. We are more likely than any other minority to be murdered. We have ridiculously inflated suicide rates. We are more likely to live in poverty. We are more likely to be denied health care, employment, housing, access to government assistance programs. Young trans women that are forced out of their homes end up sometimes resorting to sex work and exposing themselves to the weather conditions as they live on the streets, and also exposing themselves to higher risk of contracting the HIV/AIDS virus. It's completely legal to discriminate against us in most parts of our country. The Stonewall riots, transsexuals were at the forefront of that, but nowadays modern so-called equal rights movements leave behind the transgender population to fight for the rights of, upper middle class white homosexuals, because it's just too much to ask to drag along the freak show if you're going to make any progress. You gotta take baby steps if you want to get equality for everyone, and hopefully they'll come back for us one day. Media portrayals of transgender people are obviously not very positive. Parents who let their children or teens transition are abusive, and trans men are just butchy lesbians, and trans women are written off as men in dresses. And trans women, who do make up a larger portion of the transgender population, are still grossly disproportionate in representing victims of anti-transgender violence. And this is where I want to make clear that the violence that the trans community faces stems from overall gender inequality in our society. There exists very gendered prejudice and violence in our society, especially against women. Look, like rape, domestic violence, just general attitudes of undermining and disregarding identities, sexual and intellectual identities of women. And men are motivated to be strong so they don't seem emasculated or resemble anything like women. There are so many things you can call a woman today, but the worst thing you can call a man is a girl, and that's just sad. But I digress. I'm making this video because I want to invite you in remembering our dead, and I want to extend the invitation to those who maybe weren't aware of this reality to come in solidarity and take a moment of silence to reflect on the lives of those that we have lost and the reasons for which they have died. It isn't just about us, it's about everyone. And please, don't let transphobia or misogyny or any kind of gendered prejudice or hatred live, because when you do, people die. And that's what we have to remember.